Then the laser fire. What the? You're all clear, kid. Han, Chewie, and the Falcon swoop in from overhead. Vader's wingmen swerve, crash, and send Vader spinning off into space. Aha! Gotcha, Mr. Bad Guy. But wait. The Death Star is now within range. Commence primary ignition. No, they can't do that. Not after the rebels have fought so hard to stop them. They just can't win. Use the Force, Luke. Let go of your feelings. Luke closes his eyes in a moment of concentration. Well, I certainly can't close mine. The buttons are being pushed to fire up the super laser cannons. Luke is flying closer. The small lever is being brought down. The super laser is charging. My heart is racing. I'm white-knuckling the guardrail. Then Luke finally fires. The photons go straight in. Is it really going to work? As the ships flee the Death Star, it erupts in a ball of flame. It worked! They did it! They did it. But poor R2. Poor 3PO. Lost his best friend and even offered to donate some of his parts? How long had they been associated with each other? Can droids really feel? I think I was as heartbroken as 3PO. The theater erupted in a wave of applause. The cheering continued through the awards ceremony and into the credits. I couldn't stop looking. I sat through the credits, much to the dismay of Troy's dad. We stumbled out of the theater into the harsh sunlight. Why, this had to be what it was like on Tatooine. The chatter continued into the car. Did you see? Can you believe? What about? Oh, that was the coolest. We arrived back home by 4, and there was no way that my parents were going to know the pure thrill and excitement I had just experienced. My older brother already knew I had gone and vowed not to tell a soul. This was so cool. I thanked Troy and his dad and headed back inside my own house. Vroom, vroom. I made the lightsaber sounds as I walked in. Pew pew, pew pew. The laser sounds were going off in my head. I ran straight in to tell my brother how great this movie was, and that he was sure to want to see it. He listened closely and thought it sounded pretty cool, but still a kid's movie. With me being 11 and him 14, he was still a kid. I sat in my room trying to draw what I had just witnessed, without much luck. I turned on the television, hoping to see commercials for this fantastic movie I just saw. Any glimpse of being able to see any scene again was worth sitting through any number of bad shows. I was lucky enough to see 3 commercials air before shutting the TV off at 5. I had to let it cool down before anyone got home from work. It was a big console television, and those took a while to cool, especially in the hot Indiana summers. The time was at hand. 5:30 on the nose. The front door unlocked, and in came my mother, followed closely by my father. The normal hand on top of the television gave clues that it had been on sometime recently, but that was dismissed to cartoon watching and waiting for them to return home. Mom, in her usual daily question, asked what we did today. Did she know? Had my brother sold me out to get something he liked? I began to sweat. What was I going to do? What was I going to say? Oh, not much, I stated. Hung out with Troy most of the day. Okay, was her reply. Go get cleaned up, and then we'll eat in about 15 minutes. I went back and washed my hands and face, the pictures of the day swirling around in my head, the music and sounds washing within every scene. I went back into my room and pulled out whatever toys I had to make them act like Star Wars characters. There's nothing like recreating the pivotal moments in a movie with 12-inch G.I. Joes and Little Green Army Men. It didn't matter though. These toys became my Star Wars actors, and with some imagination, tanks could be flying TIE fighters, and pencils made excellent scaled lightsabers for the Joes. Time for dinner, the call came out, my brother pushing me back into the room so he could get up the hallway first. I'm gonna tell. He turned and looked at me. The evil look on his face. Oh no, you're not, or I'll tell. He had me. There wasn't another thing that I could ever tell on him about. I was now in the grasp of his tyranny. He could mold me however he pleased, because he had information on me that could destroy me. As we sat at the dinner table, I was as fidgety as could be. Then, without even thinking about it, I started talking about Star Wars. What was I doing? I couldn't stop though. I went on and on and on about how great this movie was and that everyone would like it, and Dad would especially like it. Suddenly, I found that I could stop. When I looked at my mother, who was giving the most angry eye a mother can give without literally burning a hole through a person. I looked over to Dad for his take on things, and he was smiling. My brother looked as though I had just taken the one thing away from him that he treasured the most. And I suppose I did. "I thought I told you not to see that movie," my mom said. "I told you not to go, and you went anyway. How did you get there? How did you pay for it? What are we going to do to punish you?" These questions and more were presented to me while my dad said nothing. Finally, he spoke. "So how was it?" Well, that opened the gates even further. I went on and on about the entire experience and asking how they could make things like that. My dad was a filmmaker at heart, but a draftsman by design. He had the best Super 8 equipment he could buy and always shot great home movies and air shows. He understood my fascination with this movie. He had seen the commercials, and there had been articles about the groundbreaking special effects in his movie magazines. I was off the hook. Star Wars was mine. Well, it was mine for a couple of minutes anyway. My brother chimed in to remind Dad that I had completely disobeyed them and that something should happen. Well, something did happen. I was grounded. I was grounded while they were home, and I had to go to work with my mom. The time frame was set at a week. I could live with that. So I went to work with Mom at the library. The first chance I got, I tracked down the Star Wars novelization and began reading it. And it had pictures in it from the movie. I read the entire book in 2 days and then reread it. After seeing how much I loved the book, and that my attitude hadn't changed and I wasn't practicing witchcraft or wizardry, maybe Star Wars was okay. She still wasn't happy about it, but she seemed okay with my liking it. Remember me saying that the theater was directly across the street from the library? Well, I decided that I could go to work with Mom often and see this movie over and over. As it ended up, she was okay with that. I got to see Star Wars every day. It was only $2 to see a movie and to get a soda. After several viewings, the theater owner let me see it for free whenever I came over. That meant that I was getting a stockpile of money, which led to the purchasing of some figures. All in all, I saw Star Wars over 40 times in its opening summer. Some days I'd watch it twice. I'd go with friends on the weekends. This was fantastic. My dad frowned a bit on the money I was wasting seeing a movie so many times. "You know what happens," he'd say. Any money I got would be saved up to buy a figure. I wanted more, but couldn't afford them. And Dad would not budge on the wasting money aspect of toys. I was also not allowed to touch his Super 8 equipment, even though I just knew I could make a feature just as good with my figures and die-cast metal ships. Well, I had one X-Wing and Vader's TIE Fighter. Fascination grew to obsession over the years. When Star Wars was finally put on television on HBO, I was at my friend's house all the time. An uncle had this new gadget called a VCR, so he taped it. Even though there was a copying signal run with it and made watching it a rough thing, I would reel it up over and over. My dad ended up buying a Super 8 reel that highlighted parts of the movie, and he would watch that with me as well. All in all, I have exceeded the 3,500 viewings of Star Wars long ago. I still pop in the DVDs at work, and am so excited that the original trilogy came out on DVD. My few toys have grown into a 35-page collection and a room in our house. My daughter, through no influence of my own, is a fan as well. We had a great time at C3, and she accompanied me to the midnight showing of Revenge of the Sith. My dad will come and see what new things I have, and gets as much enjoyment as I do out of seeing it all. He sees what I've put into it all, and knows what it's worth. But there is no price that can be put on the bonding that Star Wars has brought into our family. The circle, indeed, is now complete.